Hello, and welcome to the How to Make a Podcast podcast. My name is Casey Ruff from Boundless Body LLC, and I am the host of Boundless Body Radio. Before October of 2020, I was not a podcaster. Now, I have recorded hundreds of episodes featuring incredible guests, created tons of helpful content, and have consistently generated thousands of downloads every month since I began. I'm just a regular dude trying to share a message, and now I'm ready to show you my process, my successes and failures, and everything I've learned along the way to help you start your own podcast. Together, we'll explore the entire process of having a podcasting idea and take it all the way to publishing your first episode and explore all the steps in between. Then, I'll give you all the tools that you will need so you can record as many episodes that you want to release after that. Podcasting is one of the most enriching skills I've ever added to my life, and I've learned a ton by talking with some of my heroes and sharing it with anyone who wants to join us on our journey. So, sit back, grab a notebook, take some notes, and welcome to the How to Make a Podcast podcast. Hey, this is Casey Ruff. Welcome to episode 7 of the How to Make a Podcast podcast. Today we will be talking all about editing. You have just finished recording your very first podcast. Congratulations, that's amazing. Such a cool accomplishment. Now you have an unedited audio file that will become your first official podcast. So congratulations, you have achieved the hardest part of podcasting, in my opinion, which is push and record the very first time. We talked about that last time. As always, this is my process. This isn't the process that you have to use. I know plenty of podcasts out there that are unedited completely. I don't think that's the way to go personally. I think they're a little bit rough, and that comes across as being a little rough, but you can do whatever you like. But if you'd like to do some editing, this is the process that I found to be the most simple. I also pay for this. We've talked about this before in the software episode. I use the website called Alitu, and they are designed specifically to record podcasts, to edit podcasts, to add intros and outros. They have all kinds of really cool features. They make everything so easy for me. It's really encouraging to continue making podcasts. You can also try Audacity, which is the free online, kind of audio editor that a lot of people are familiar with and know of. I just thought the learning curve on that was super steep, and I was not willing to go through that type of learning, but just know that that's free. There may be other options out there that I'm unaware of. I'm sure there are. So go with whatever you're comfortable with. But for me, paying $28 a month for Alitu was well worth it for all of the features that I get and the ease of use being the number one top priority. I'm very much willing to trade a little bit of money for time when it comes to editing. So Alitu, ALITU.com. I believe they have free trials, or maybe they've got I think I did the first 3 months were discounted. They always have something kind of going on there. I'm not sure what they'll do continuously moving forward, but feel free to take advantage of them. I really have enjoyed them. And I've said this before also, their customer service has just been remarkable. If I ever have a question, their online chat, they're super prompt. They help me with all kinds of different things. And I've really appreciated that. They also tend to update their software quite a bit. So they keep a running tab of things that they would like to improve or different features they'd like to add. A lot of that is based on what the users are telling them. And I have to say, just a few days ago, they made this amazing update that had all kinds of improved features and also added features. So kudos to them for not just making a product and letting it be what it is, but focusing on constant improvement. That's something I really strive for in my life. And so I appreciate when other companies are doing the same. And I have to give them a ton of credit for being able to do that. So yeah, huge props to Alitu. I've been very, very happy with them so far. All right, so you have your micro SD card. If that's how you chose to record your podcast, we use the Rodecaster Pro like we've talked about. So we just insert the micro SD card in the back. Once it's recorded, we just pop the thing out and we place it into the laptop. So I've got my computer automated automatically to take the file that's in that folder and copy it over to the hard drive. So now I have 2 copies. My worst fear is one day not pushing the record button to start a podcast. Which is really hard to do because if you don't push record, the button's green, not red, and there's no timer on your screen. So it'd be pretty easy to tell if you didn't do that, although that is my absolute nightmare scenario. The other thing would be losing the file somewhere between transferring it over and saving it. So before I cut the thing, I want the original audio and I want it copied as soon as possible in 2 different places. So now I know I've got it on the hard drive, and I also have the original on the micro SD, which I won't do anything else with at that point. I'm going to keep it on there before I delete it and clear it off. So once you have it on the hard drive, you can go to Alitu and click on Add New Episode, and that's where you will find the file path of where you saved your audio, and you will begin the processing process. So you just bring that in. You will be allowed to give your episode a name, so you can type out whatever name you want for the episode. Not critical at this point, but it will be important, so you can be thinking about that. It also has optional things that you can add, like the host name or the episode description. I put my host name on there, so I'll put Casey Ruff. Beyond that, I really don't mess with it that much. I'll do that on the hosting side later on, which we'll cover in the next episode. I don't really need to mess with that or take a lot of time to be able to do that. From there, you import the audio and then click upload. And this can take a few minutes, so just be patient. Depending on how long your interview went, it's processing the audio and cleaning things up for you and everything else. And so, step away. Since it takes a few minutes, immediately after an episode, I will go down, do all those steps, and then I will go outside. I'll get a little walk in. I'll do something different to distract me and come back in 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. It really only takes, I would say 10 minutes max for an hour-long interview if you're doing a shorter one. Like these formats, they come out much, much quicker. Once you have that uploaded, it will allow you to edit your audio. So this is the important part. With Alitu, they make it so easy. So once you import the audio, you'll see kind of a typical looking sound file. And it will be the entire file. So if it's an hour long, it will be very much compressed and it will be almost impossible to make any edits. So after you push play on the audio and get it going, now you're going to want to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and find the balance of where you can easily make edits that are about the length you want to make without it moving so quickly that it's, going across the screen too fast to be very practical. The editing through Alitu is just click and drag. It's just so simple. But before you make any edits, ask yourself whether there's any reason to make a split in your audio. So we've explained this before, that sometimes we've had weird Zoom pings or audio issues where somebody sounds really good and all of a sudden for the rest of the episode, they sound terrible. That will need to be split so that I can add some type of bumper to make it less distracting. So if that goes on the fly, you'll notice that will be, it will carry you away from the conversation for a while. So I'll do something like this where I will split the episode and then I will create a bumper that might sound something like this. Hey, so sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to put this here and say that the audio quality at this point kind of took a weird change. And so it's going to sound a little bit different, but the content's amazing. So stick with it. I promise you will enjoy it. That's it. And so I will record that separately and import it in as a different track. And so that can reduce the distraction. If I edit that in, it's 20 seconds. Again, all I'm doing is pushing my intro music, letting it play in the background. I'm just going to explain myself for 20 seconds and fade it back out. And I will use that track as a bumper. Splitting the recording would also be useful if you are importing different commercials or advertisements. If you're monetizing your podcast, maybe you want to split after somebody finishes a sentence, and then you want to import a separate 30-second, 1 minute kind of an advertisement that you're either recording or is pre-recorded. Make sure that you do your splitting before you do your editing, because if you edit first and then ask to split, it won't keep any of the edits. You'll lose all of the edits for the split. And I've done that before where I've taken, 10, 15, 20 minutes to do the editing and then realized I needed to split it and then realized I would have to go back every single one of those times and make those same edits on 2 separate tracks now. So there will be before you split and past where you split. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, editing things can be a little bit tricky. There's definitely an art to it. There can be edits that you do that take up too much and some that will take up not enough. So I'm going to give you an example here of how you can really nail an edit, or an example of where you can really goof it up. Mary had a little lamb. His fleece was white as snow. Mary had a little lamb. His fleece was white as snow. Mary had a little lamb. His fleece was white as snow. Okay, so I just read that in real time at the same pace, and now I'm going to go back and make edits so that you can hear the difference. One will be a little bit too quick, and one will be not quite enough. And you can kind of see there's a bit of an art to that, making sure that you are placing your edits at the appropriate start and finish time, and making sure that they are taking out the part that you don't want to talk about. Sometimes voice tones are different. So if I start out talking in this type of a voice and then I goof something up, blah, 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 and I want to go cut that out. But then the next time I'm talking, I'm a little more excited or intonated. That's also kind of challenging. And you'll have to decide how you want to deal with that, because that can be very unnatural going from like a really low voice to a high voice. You may decide you need to make your cut even longer, even if it cuts out something, really great that they're saying. I'll also cut out, things that are really off topic. I'll cut out sometimes things that are like political. I just don't want to mess with that kind of stuff and get a lot of pushback. And so those are times when I'll make cuts. Very commonly, it will be, the guest goofs up on something. They can't remember something. Sometimes they'll ask to edit that out. And then obviously I certainly do all the time. The other thing that happens a lot is awkward gaps. So, maybe they finish making a point. There's 2 seconds of like dead air, which feels like an eternity. And so you either start talking, but then they start talking at the same time, and now you're talking over each other. That can be really distracting. I'll try to cut those out. Or it could be that you're waiting for them to follow up on their point, and they just frankly like never do. And so 5 seconds have passed and you realize like, wow, I gotta go. That's all dead space that's really easy to cut out, making those edits. So those are things you want to be thinking about. Make sure you definitely practice. Like I said, this is a bit of an art, and it can be really tough to get down, but once you've practiced, I think you'll find it to be very easy. Also think it's a really good idea to decide how many edits you want to make. I don't edit this podcast very much because I want you to hear the rawness. And I've got a little note next to me that says to remind me not to say 50 bazillion times in every interview I do. I've certainly gotten better with that. But finding things to cut out just because it's an or some kind of vocal sign that somebody's waiting to answer a question that you feel like maybe goes too long. Decide how many of those you want to edit out. First of all, they can be very challenging to edit out. And second of all, you might spend a ton of time editing out every single little in an episode. Sometimes it's not as distracting as you would think. I also sometimes go a little bit too far when I'm editing the space between me asking a question and them answering. I think sometimes it can feel a little bit awkward if I finish a question, it's been 2 or 3 or 4 seconds. They're either maybe getting a drink or maybe they're really thinking about the question. So just try to decide what you think sounds best as far as cutting out the dead space between questions asked and questions answered, and then any other mistakes or goof ups or anything like that. So on Alitu also, once you finish editing your primary audio, this is where you can also import other forms of audio. So the way we do this show, we have a separate outro that I've already recorded. It's the exact same every single time. So this will be the original audio file. And then all I do is push a plus where I can import another soundtrack right after this, which will automatically play my 20 to 30 second outro every single time. It's consistent. It's already done for me. That makes it really simple. I don't need to mess with any of that. You can decide if you want to do the same for a standard intro. Alitu makes that very, very simple. A few other cool things about Alitu that I really love is it gives you the ability to use their music library and import certain songs that you can use for intros and outros. And yesterday I was playing along with this. It's not normally a feature I use since I already have paid for the tracks that I use as my intro, outro music. But if you want something for free, they have quite a bit of different styles and lots of different lengths to choose from for intro and outro music that you can just have. And you can also, there's a feature where you can edit your sound in on top of that to make the sound kind of flow really well. So I'm really impressed by their music library and all the choices you have. Like I said, you can record the audio as the music's playing, kind of that typical podcasting style for an intro and outro. I really enjoy that they do that. Through Alitu, you can also record your calls. So if you don't want to use Zoom, you want to use podcasting software to import audio, that's totally fine, and Alitu allows you to do that. I don't personally use that. I think Zoom is a little bit more convenient, but that is a feature that they have. So once you are done doing all the editing on your audio file, now it's time to download the final audio file. So you'll see a big button there that says download. Click download. This takes, for an hour, probably about 20 seconds to download the entire file. I will take that file, I will rename it and tag it as the final version of the audio, and then I will transfer it to a separate folder where I keep all of my audio podcasts. And now I know that I have at least a copy of the original file, at least a copy of the final file. I can always download another one from Alitu. So now I feel pretty confident to go back to the micro SD card and clear it out, delete it out, so you always have plenty of memory for your conversations. The next step here is to push the create video button. So this is what's going to make the video file that you can then post to YouTube. Like we've said earlier, we don't really mess with a lot of video. I'd rather stay true to really good quality audio. And so this will just create a squiggly line for audio, but it gives you a video file that you can either put on your YouTube station, or if your guest has a big YouTube following, it might be really good to give them that file so that they can post it there. This will only give you more people to listen, people to watch. The one thing you want to be careful for is when you click create video, whatever title you put in is going to be the text during that video's playing length for the entirety. So this is the point that you really want to make sure whatever your title of your episode is put into Alitu as the title. It also has a very limited amount of characters before it spreads across the entire screen. So just make sure you're a little bit more on the brief side. Even if you change it later, you may want to say just such and such conversation with Dr. such and such, and just keep it really brief. That way your title will reflect, what the topic is, what the person is, and it will fit into that video that will pop up later. This, again, is something that takes a few minutes, so be patient with this. This is where I will, maybe edit something else or work on something else, come back in 10, 15 minutes. At this point, you are ready to download the video. So it did the processing and created the video for you. Now you can download it. Once you have that downloaded, you're pretty much at your final step with your episode as far as editing goes. Now you are ready to upload this onto your hosting website. So mine is Buzzsprout. Again, Alitu has made it super easy. All I need to do is click a button. After you get it set up, it just says publish to Buzzsprout. It already knows my Buzzsprout page. I click that button, and within a few seconds, I can go to Buzzsprout and I see that a new episode is processing and getting ready, and that my work on Alitu is basically done at that point. You could also just go to your host and take the audio file and upload that directly into the hosting software. That works too. I just think it's a little bit more cumbersome, and this makes it really easy. It'll carry over the title for you and anything else you've included for details. That is the editing process. That's the way I do things. The whole process, I would say I've got it pretty well dialed down to be maybe 10 to 20 minutes start to finish, depending on how many edits I need to make. And this is where I'm going to go back and say that if you have been time stamping your episode, you know exactly where to go to make the edits. You don't have to listen to the entire thing from start to finish in the editing process to get this done. And this saves a ton of time. So I really encourage you to take notes during your episode and take the time to just time stamp different places that you want to go to make different edits. I think it will pay you back tenfold and a lot of time saved. So that's the editing. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. This has been a fun process. This was episode 7. We have 3 more to go before we are concluding this special series. And from there, we will probably change the format and keep it going maybe as an interview style, whatever we get based on feedback. But hopefully these 10 episodes will give you everything you need to be able to start your own podcast. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you for listening to the How to Make a Podcast podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple. Also, be sure to check out the show that made all of this possible, Boundless Body Radio, where we provide tons of helpful and informative content, feature incredible guests, and talk all about health and wellness. Cheers, and thank you for joining us on the How to Make a Podcast podcast.